welcome to the Future Work Forum session today. We will see in a minute that I have some slides to share with you, which will talk about the future of work. But first, just a little bit more about what the Future Work Forum is, just as an introduction for today. We're a think tank. We get together, we share ideas, and whilst many of our partners have experience in HR, we have a wide range of other experience as well. Several of our partners are leadership experts. They lecture at business schools, and this is one of the things we try to do, which is relate the big picture of the future of work through to the detail of, so how does this work with leaders, managers, people in organizations? We have a very people-centered approach to what we think work is about. And as we'll see through the day, with technology coming in more, with AI more into taking over some of the human aspects of work, we now have problems with what was generated by a human. What was, people in recruitment now, they have an interesting question of who wrote this CV. Was it AI or was it the person? And if somebody has used the technology effectively to enhance what they're doing, is that cheating? Is that good? Is that bad? And we have to think now about how, in this new world, the impact of this change is just one of the many changes. So we try and generate an insight into what's happening for people at work. Means we're sociologists. We look at what's happening with society, the values that people have, how work fits into people's lives, and particularly, of course, now in the years post the pandemic, it was a big shock to the working system. Many people stopped work in pandemic and never came back, or revalued what happens with their home life versus their work life. And people have stopped and thought about that. And then employers, organizations are now thinking about how does that change the way we work more permanently? Do we force our employees to come back to the office because we want them all together in teams, collaborating face to face? Do we allow them to work remotely because they can now with technology? What are the benefits of having people physically face to face working in teams and bouncing ideas off each other and having that human experience, versus being able to effectively work at home, maybe have improved work-life balance, have a better, happier, less stressful family life? Where is our responsibility as HR people in managing the well-being of individuals? Do we become very paternalistic and try and help people, or do we leave people more to manage their own lives? Where is that boundary? This has all been challenged, I think, over the last few years, thanks to the discontinuity from the pandemic. And we now see that leaders are struggling a bit with how do I exert leadership over my organization? And for the chief HR officer, this is a real challenge. How much do we lead the culture of the organization, and how much do we allow it to evolve naturally? So those are the kind of things that the Future Work Forum is dealing with. And so I see the world of HR moving from an old world to a new world. And I think if anything is accelerating this, it has to be artificial intelligence. For once, I think we have a genuine balance issue between what technology can realistically do and what humans can do. In the past, this was always, the technology did the regular boring bits. It was under the control of the humans. We knew who was in charge. Now, who is in charge? Who actually is making the decisions? Is it easier to let the technology do it? And I'll illustrate that in a minute with what AI has done for me in this presentation. So the old human resources department was one that listened to what the business wanted, but the business the line managers, the leaders, designed the work process. They knew their department had to provide engineering, sales, research, whatever the department does. They say, here's the work. Here's some technology, some computers we can use in that work. And then they design, essentially work design is done, the line managers. Then the human resource department says, what does this mean for our people? And we have to go out and find people to match the work, look at the profile of skills needed for people and develop those skills and come up with practices to compensate people, reward people, engage people, and so on. And HR very much to do with the conditions of employment, legal regulation, dealing with unions and labor issues. And that's been the traditional HR role. Now I think we are into a new world, partly the post-pandemic world, but very much a world which is driven now by the technology, where we have the new processes which are much more values driven. If the technology can do all the work, then what are the humans doing? Why do we want humans to come together? And what does it mean to the humans to make that happen? And we'll see more in some of the presentations this morning about the balance between getting the process done and the well-being of the individuals who are involved in that. So at the front of the process, the human impact is assessed. It may be that AI can do something, a piece of work, but we don't want the technology to do it, because that piece of work is something very satisfying, very rewarding for the employee. It's something that may be done better in a team of people rather than by pressing a button on a computer. Even though the computer could come up with the right answer, that's not the point. The point is that the process of how work is done becomes now much more important. It's what is the human impact? How does that help the individuals? It's no good dehumanizing work because it's more efficient and all the employees leave because they don't enjoy what they're doing. We have to create an environment where people want to come to work. Back to the argument about going into the office, if people want to come to work together with their colleagues, it has to be not because they're being forced to turn up 5 days a week to somewhere they don't want to go, but because they want to be there, because it's a rewarding experience going to work with other human beings. And that's why I think hybrid working in the best of organizations is working well, because you get the best of people going in, have the human contact when they need it, and working efficiently with the computing when they don't need to be face-to-face. So the human resources becomes involved at the front of setting the business outcomes and setting the role that the people play along with technology. So I see much more teams of technologists, line managers, HR people sitting down together to design work. Work being something that is an output from a combination of technology, other resources, and people, not a set of tasks that just get set for people, then we try and match the people to the work. So work design becomes something that is much more a human resources skill that we don't have, I think, so much at the moment, and we have to need to get more into that. And the technology becomes much more an integrated part of that. So what do HR end up doing? Really looking at the values of the organization, looking at how you resource the organization, a combination of people and things, and create that right balance between the two. And then don't just let the kind of organizational culture happen as a result of people getting together, much more designing the culture as something that is an intended way of helping people to work. So that, I think, is part of the background to what we're talking about today. So what I did, I said, right, let's look at AI. So I asked ChatGPT, can you give me some bullet points on preparing HR for the future with artificial intelligence? And thank you very much. ChatGPT produced this slide. I have not edited one word on it, okay? And it looks to me a pretty good list, okay? So I think, right, a little example of using the technology not to replace me, but to enhance what I do. Okay, I asked for this, I put it up, so it's still under my control. But it's an example of the balance between using the technology to enhance what I do versus having the technology take over and tell me what to do. So there's the subtle difference. And looking just down this list, some of these things we are going to cover today. Technology and organization, automation is there right there. Culture, we've just talked about. The employee experience being something very important now that is HR really has to define what we want the employee experience to be and help line managers to create that. Diversity is something we talk about a lot in theory. Some of that is just mechanical, applying to legal requirements, but actually having a diverse workforce, genuinely including people, is something that HR is not just doing to meet its regulatory requirements, but actually to create a productive and enjoyable work experience. Hybrid working, we've mentioned, and just being agile and a resilient workforce. The workforce is going to survive and enhance the organization if it's a resource that is happy and wants to do the work. And that's again, HR being to do with not just well-being in terms of people being healthy at work, but also motivation, engagement, people wanting to do the work. Aligning HR with business strategy, the key theme I just talked about, is something that again came up from AI, and emerging trends is something we're obviously talking about as we go through today.